Okay, let's call the meeting to order. Wayne Cohn, would you pray for us, please?
If you will, please stand, let's pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we just come to you now, thanking you for this day that you give us. Lord, we just ask that you be with us here in the meeting tonight. Lord, that the decisions we've made are the decisions we need to make. Lord, we just ask for safety on our streets and area tonight. And Lord, I ask special blessing tonight on the young deputy in Newton County and his family. Be with that family through this time. Go with us, guide and direct us in the decisions made tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Be seated. All right, this being a committee meeting tonight, let's see who we got with us. I see Bill. Looks like Shonda is up there. Bob Largent. And we got Mr. Ruda. Looks like we've got Mark and Dan both.
There it is. Oh, it's got me.
Okay. All right. And Steve is over on the other side. All right, let's go ahead and
We're muted.
you're wanting me to.
Yes, sir, so we'll get that echo.
Is that what the echo was?
Yeah.
There we go.
Good?
Is that better? Okay. It looks like Mitch Magnus just hit the town. Hello, Mitch. Let's go ahead and get started. We have Joel. I guess you would be up first. And we have something titled Permit Fees.
Yes. Would you like to explain that?
Yeah, I'd like to start by sharing with you all that some time ago, the chamber put a meeting together with a group, actually a little north of here, up in Branson, about maybe doing some developing. As you all know, we need houses so badly, and we don't have lots, so we can't build houses. So it just gets to a point where it's really hurting our growth. It's hurting a lot of people that are coming to town or living in Branson, and we just have nothing to sell. Some of you folks that aren't into that business probably don't realize it's as bad as it is, but it's real bad. And if there's anything we can do, we might want to consider it. That's up to you. I want to turn it over to Bob Largent, and Bob would introduce our guest tonight.
Thanks very much, Mayor, and Joel, thank you as well. As the mayor laid out, we've got a very serious economic development issue in that Boone County has few, if any, homes available, especially single-family homes, for employees being recruited into the area, primarily looking at their second home. We've got a lot of first-home buyers in Boone County, have been established employees here who are looking for a second home and they're not available. We've had a number of meetings. This is a real economic development issue for the chamber. We've brought together a number of, I think it was roughly 20 to 25 home building contractors and subcontractors that are all licensed here in Boone County. And we find a number of challenges. Primary in those challenges is, as Jerry said, a lack of homes. Today in the Harrison District, Harrison Board of District Realtors, there are less than 100 homes available for sale in Boone County. That's down from 600 plus last year. You'll recall that in January, when I made my economic development report, I showed you a couple of charts that showed the number of homes listed, number sold, and primarily that was important to everyone, the absorption rate. So we have, through a variety of venues have identified Dan Ruda. Dan and his son Mark are on the call, and Steve Creedon. Steve is the owner of SMBZ Construction, and Dan and his son Mark are an established, successful real estate developer in Missouri and in other locations around the country. I think of prime importance is, as a set of credentials, they are the developers, the prime developers of Thousand Hills in Branson. That is not only the golf course, but all of the housing developments around it. One of the issues is finding a qualified, interested developer to come in and build homes. We have reached out, again, in Boone County with all of our home builders and contractors and find that to be the #1 issue. Dan has, as I said, experience in developing subdivisions, and Dan, I think, has a very viable position and proposal to come to Harrison and Boone County. And Dan, I'd like to turn it over to you and Steve and Mark for your comments to the Garrison City Council.
So, thank you, Bob. So, I'm Dan Ruda. Steve Creedon actually made the introduction. He's been down in the Harrison market and built 10 or 15 homes in the last 12 months, and started making contacts and trying to understand the market. So, I guess to add to what Bob said is that right now, all over the country, with particularly the way the economic environment is, and interest rates in particularly, home building is vibrant. The challenge that you have when you do homes and development is and what Harrison's issue is that the initial cost of developing the infrastructure for the subdivision is once you start, you can't stop, and you don't know what the absorption rate is of the lots. And so it's an all-in thing, and so that's it's not that any of the developers in Boone County and Harrison would not build homes if there were lots, is that the inventory of lots is almost non-existent. So to do something viable and get any numbers of any kind, somebody's got to come in and make a multi-million-dollar investment that is a long-term investment and a big investment, and not know exactly what the absorption rate. Now, if there's ever time to do it, as Bob just said, the inventory levels are low, and it's time. Part of the reason that you don't have a half a dozen developers knocking on your door is that there are opportunities all over the country, and most of them are larger, and so the people that have the talent and the financial wherewithal to do it are already busy. So, with all that said, we talked to Bob and the mayor and several other people. We are seriously looking at the market. One of the things that we asked the community to, particularly the city, was to get some type of concession. And the concession, as much as being of significance financially, because in the spirit of what we're going to do, it is not material, but we are asking for some concession on city fees and permitting fees and review fees. The reason that that is so important to us is that it signifies that the city really wants it, that you're behind it, and that, somebody coming in from the outside, that we're not gonna be frustrated every turn, with something else new, that hopefully it's a team process where we're gonna pull the wagon together. So, anyway, that's where it's at. I can tell you, I'll let Steve talk also, he's been there in the market, we are excited about it. And I guess the other side that I would like to impress upon the group is that time is really, really critical. Interest rates are at all-time lows, and they've been that way for a while. And I think, as all of us know, is that the dynamics of what's going on, particularly at the federal level, is that I think all of us suspect there's going to be some change, and that probably means economic change. And so those could be negative, and if that's the case, and particularly negative for development and home construction. So with that risk out there, timing and urgency is very, very critical, because obviously to do a development like we're talking about, the lead time and execution time for permitting, engineering, planning, building, construction, to get to, the end game of new homes delivered to the market, is a long period of time. So, Steve, with that, I'll let you kind of weigh in on your assessment of the market and how we're looking at it.
Hi, everybody. I really only have a couple of things to add, but some of the other concession areas that could help us would be anywhere from lot size requirements to road right-of-way requirements and any type of bonding and impact fees. But we see that there's a need in the Garrison area for basically homes from $175,000 to $250,000, and that's the area that we would like to work towards to create the need, fulfill the need that Harrison needs. We have talked with Bob extensively and a few other community leaders, and it seems like the time to try to work something out.
Okay, all right. Talking fees, I believe Wade is with us, and Wade has prepared some fee structures that he would like to share with the council and with you folks. Wade?
Yes.
Is he able to put those up?
Share my screen. I'll give you a few examples of how our fees for planning and construction work. Get this up so that we can.
Dan and Steve, I think you'll see that our fee structure is probably quite a bit less than you're used to. So that might be a good surprise.
It is. I'll go ahead and, one of the things that was mentioned was impact fees. The city of Harrison does not do impact fees. We basically have your typical planning and zoning fees going through that process, as well as building permit fees through the fire department, and then our, the cost to get connected to the water and sewer system as far as your tap fees. So on the screen, can everybody see the screen? Yes? Okay. So just looking at a typical 50-lot subdivision where your average house size is 250 square feet. On this example, your planning fees for rezone, preliminary plat, final plat will total around $5,250. So that'd be an average of about $105 a lot. Our residential building permit fees right now are at 23 cents per square foot. So for each home built in that subdivision, the total residential permit fee would be $575, and that includes any type of permits you might be used to on a residential project. That's your standard building permit, grading, electrical, HVAC, all of that's rolled into that same permit. And then on water and sewer tap fees, we're a little different than some cities. We don't set just a flat fee. We actually base it on the actual cost of providing the tap. And the reason we do that is there a lot of times if you just try to do one tap fee across the board, you end up with a lot of people paying more than they should, and a lot of people paying a lot less than the cost to get the water to them. So those typically would average about $855 per lot. So as far as total fees that we charge to, from the city to a developer through the contractor building the permit, you're looking at, $1,535 per lot. And then, a couple of other quick examples, residential subdivision with 20 lots, some bigger homes up to 3,500 square foot on average. Your total city fees per built lot would be, a little bit over $1,770. And, going with maybe some smaller homes, 40 lot subdivision with 1,800 square foot homes would be right at, $1,376. So, beyond that, like I said, we don't charge impact fees. It's not something that we really even had discussions about because we want to encourage as much development as we can. That's a pretty good summary of what a developer would be looking at as far as the actual fees that would be charged by the city. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Bob, you want to take it back? Maybe.
You're muted, Bob.
Hey, Bob.
I was muted, sorry. I think the question is, based upon what Wade, the examples that Wade gave for a 50-lot subdivision with total unit cost, in order to increase local taxes, to provide an incentive to recruiting for our prime and Main Street businesses, we need to strongly encourage a developer to come in, invest in the community, and build homes. It's an absolute necessity to do that. One could argue and could use a variety of tax information, but if there were 50 new homes under construction and they were sold in the Harrison market, the tax increase to the community would be more than substantial, not just the cost of the home being built in Harrison, but it would be the revenue and the tax from the salaries of those employees living and working in Harrison. It's substantial in the millions of dollars. So while I'm not in a position to make a request, Joel, to your committee, I believe consideration should be given to offering for a period of time, not forever, but whether it be 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, it would be a very positive action on the part of the community to offer to any developer a reduction, percent reduction of the permit and tap fees that Wade just gave you. I'm not a developer or investor. I'm not certain of that, but based upon what I saw from the figures that Wade showed, if there were a 50% reduction in those permit fees, that would be a substantial incentive for a developer to come in and acquire land and begin to build homes. Dan and Steve and Jerry, you got a handle on this as a former real estate executive, and there are some others there in the room as well. So I would be interested to know if that's in the ballpark, if that's a reasonable request to then take in the form of a motion to the committee, to the full committee.
Okay, thank you, Bob. So that's a question back to Dan?
Okay, so I guess, I'm sorry, so this is Dan Ruda again. I can't add more than that. I can tell you that our group, we've been down, Steve, as been said earlier, has been in the marketplace for over a year. Has made a sizable commitment to the area, and is the one that got us interested. We are, as I had said earlier, but we kind of drilled down on it, we are busy in Branson and at other locations right now, in a couple of national markets, and the reception that we get is very strong. I think in any community, is that, I guess there might be several questions. One, is it really needed? And, maybe the simple answer for me, and I understand that I'm not a resident there, but yes, it must be needed because something's needed, because no one has executed or been able to up till now.
Right.
So, it's there. The other side, I guess, and when we go to other communities, you have to look at it and they say, well, particularly if we have the infrastructure already existing, we have the sewer treatment plants, water facilities that handle X number more residential homes and growth, and our businesses are needing talent and bringing them to town. A home is the number one key seller for particularly the spouse and for the families, to be able to go and move into a nice, comfortable home. So if you have that infrastructure already in place, you really need to look at it and say, what does it really cost us? Because as Bob pointed out, the additional real estate taxes and real estate taxes going to the school, the additional talent pool that you have, and the fact that it helps keep your big employers competitive and vibrant with new talent is critical. The hospital is constantly bringing new talent, and they have to compete on a national level, and housing is one of those arenas that is critical in that decision. The same with several of your other national businesses that are bringing talent and looking at it as a national market and what Harrison has to offer. So I think if you want to look at it from that way, it's real easy to say, well, why are we doing this? We're going to give people that aren't resident in our community an economic benefit. The other side of it is whoever comes and does it, whether it's our group or somebody else, they're going to invest millions of dollars in your town. You take as we just said, $250,000 home times 100 of them. You're talking about a lot of money every year in additional real estate taxes, plus the additional circulation and reinvestment in the community, plus the intellectual power, bringing new talent into the market and keeping your community growing. So I really do believe it's, as all of you know, when you're talking about building homes for $225,000 or $250,000, and the permit and tap fees, etc., that we just talked about are a very, very small percentage. But as much as the city making a concession there, it's the commitment that that developer knows that the community wants them, that you're going to be received. The other side that it'll do is that activity, we all know, activity brings more activity. That's why when the first McDonald's gets built, 6 months later, Wendy's goes across the street. So what I am suggesting is there's more than a remote possibility. You start getting some development and the first person in shows that there is a market, you'll attract more people in, and the benefit may be much larger than we're talking about today. So, again, I come back to the point, timing is critical, and it's not just for Harrison, Arkansas, for the entire country, is that to think that things are going to stay as they are today, with all the activity that's going on and the economic transition that we all feel is coming nationally, is that the window may be shorter than we want, and to consider this expeditiously, I think is important. And from my standpoint, trying to look at it as I can't, but trying to put myself in your shoes as Harrison community leaders, is that the downside risk of doing this, as Bob said, for a specific period of time, 24 or 36 months, particularly with somebody coming in and making an investment, because the money is, the fees and the permits are not going to be waived unless the developer can show the financial ability and has made the commitment in soft costs and professional fees that you can be assured that they're going to execute. So I think that just thinking about it from a number side, the upside is significant and the downside is minimal.
Okay. All right, Dan, thank you. Does the committee have any questions for Dan or Steve, either one? I know you're going to want to know what they propose, because we really don't have that from Dan yet, but I'm sure he'll have something. I think one thing that would be clear is whatever is offered to these folks would also be offered to any local builder, without a doubt. So he'll be helping them out. But so anybody online? Is Bill there? Everybody, any questions on Zoom? Okay. Dan, what do you propose to the committee?
Well, we would like to have as much of the, what you guys can control, as much of the fees and the permit fees waived for that specific period of time. At a minimum, it needs to be 50%, so that we know that that we're both working on it together. And as I said, if you already have that infrastructure in place, not only in plant and equipment, meaning sewer systems, water systems, but obviously the community and the city staff is already on board. And for the size of developments that we're doing, there's no TIF or SIDS or any of that, any of those more complex type of development incentives involved here. Is that to think that, I think that it's likely, I can't speak to the city staff, but I would hope that no additional city staff would have to be hired. So to the point that I said earlier, I think most of the city's costs are sunk costs, and so yes, it's revenue the city wouldn't get, but in return for that revenue coming in, the amount of annual, ongoing, forever real estate property taxes and economic benefit taxes coming from those incomes and the circulation of that income through the community far outweighs that lost money.
Okay. All right.
So I'll need a motion.
I think Jeremy's about ready to speak.
Well, I mean,
He gets that stuff, don't you?
I'm just looking, not getting into water and sewer tap fees, but if you look at Wade's first example, $50 flat fee for rezoning, preliminary plat fee of $100 plus 50 per lot, so that's $2,600 on 50 lots. Final plat fee $100 plus 50, so that's another $2,600, so that's $5,250. If someone was willing to come in and build a 50, lot subdivision, I would say, if we're gonna show a commitment, I would say show a commitment. Why would we be talking half? It's $5,000, if I'm reading that right.
No. You're looking at, he was looking at the building lot fees that are running somewhere around $1,500. And that would reduce, if he asked for half, that's $750 per lot that we would give up in building, in fees, water tap and permit fees. Does that need, Wade, do you need to,
I have a comment.
yes?
Okay. On the water and sewer, I mean, technically as a development, we're putting all of that work into it. There's not anything for the city to do there.
Right.
So, I mean, you're not extending services, you're not digging anything. That's all something we would typically do as a developer.
Wade, did you help me with that?
He's correct. What the information I provided is just the average of what we charge, and a lot of that is, custom built on a parcel, not part of the subdivision. Typically, you would see if it's literally just a tap fee where it's dropping in the meter, it's going to be significantly less than the average, which is one of the reasons why we don't just set a flat fee across the board. Like I said, you end up with people paying a lot more than they should, and a lot of people paying a lot less than the actual cost to provide to get them set up.
Wade, can you?
I think with that in mind, it'd be, beneficial to just waive the water and sewer fees altogether.
Wade, can you help me with, I wasn't even talking about the water and sewer, I was just talking about those, am I understanding that right, that would be total planning fees for a 50 lot subdivision, you put 5,250?
Yeah,
That's for the whole, that's what I was talking about.
Oh, that's nothing.
Yeah, why
Oh,
would we
right.
not just waive the whole thing?
Oh, on the
So that-
subdivision, oh, no doubt,
Yeah,
yeah. It's just,
Yeah,
the
and-
big money's in the
Yes.
lots.
right.
Yeah.
Clarify where some of the fees go from a financial standpoint. Planning fees that Councilman Ragland was talking about, the 5250, that would be a general fund revenue item. Building permit fees are a fire fund revenue item for the community risk reduction division of the fire department, and then obviously water and sewer tap fees are a water fund revenue item. Just so we all are clear on as far as where this money goes when it does come into the city.
Okay,
Just a quick, if I can speak, Joel.
Yes.
I just kind of ran some quick numbers just to see what it would be. I based it on an $80,000 household income. I'm sure this could range anywhere from 60 to 120 as far as your household income. Looking it up, about 30% goes to taxable goods of that household income. So you'd be looking at, if you waive the full $1,500, which was the average there, that I believe for the 50 home, it could have been $1,800. It's about $300 a year, so it'd take you about 5 to 6 years to recoup that in sales tax. Just for vehicles, and then again, those houses, and that doesn't include property taxes or anything else. It's strictly on a sales tax basis. You'd get that investment back in about 5 to 6 years.
yeah.
And obviously it would go longer once those people are settled in.
Folks, I see we got Glenn Redding on the Zoom call. Glenn, would you want to say anything? You kind of represent some builders, local. See if he says anything. Yeah, maybe not. Okay. Okay, so,
Hey, to be clear on this, is this just a development for a subdivision, or is this any builder that's building a house within the city limits of Harrison?
Oh, it'd be any builder. I mean, we're talking about building lots, so it would be fees associated with building a home. And we don't want to, we don't see any reason to offer anything to custom builders. We need spec builders. So that's kind of our thought. Nothing from Glenn, huh? Okay. Well, guys,
I think for a point of clarification, Joel made a motion, but I'm unclear what the motion is.
yeah, we don't, we need a,
We need to know exactly
That didn't
what.
get a second.
yeah.
What's the motion?
Yeah, we need to know what the motion.
We'd like to know what the motion is too.
Right.
I thought we were doing 50%, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah,
That is my understanding.
For who?
I thought we were, I'm sorry, for a developer that would come in and start a subdivision,
That's,
any developer, right?
no, I think this was for a builder, any builder, not them or necessarily, but any builder.
Building a spec.
Building a spec home, building a spec home, any builder building a spec home.
A spec
So
home
even-
or a subdivision?
Well, a spec home, we're talking about the house, the building lot.
A spec home is defined as a home in which the person building it is not building for a specific person
Correct.
in mind.
Correct.
I could have a spec home out here, somewhere myself.
You could build one, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you could build one. I mean, and I'm saying that because you're not a licensed builder. I mean, these people need to be licensed builders, and they need to be building it for sale to another party. And that can be these folks, or it can be any of our local builders who want to take advantage. I recommend we make it a one-time. It could be 2 or 3 years. Either one of those time periods make a lot of sense. And the 50%, I think, makes a lot of sense. And I'm saying 50% because I think Dan will admit our fees are probably much lower than you expected. So,
well, what about looking at, instead of just saying, there's a big difference in someone building one home versus someone committing to come in and build 50. So is there any thought, discussions about a number of homes, commitment to that?
Subdivision.
Yeah, subdivision.
yeah,
I think there would be more, or at least I would be more comfortable waiving those fees if I knew someone was gonna build 50 or 75 homes, and those are gonna be built, and like, you know, more people could come in and recoup that quicker, and we wouldn't be out for just maybe, still anyone could do it, but there is a difference, you know, so.
I like that idea.
so,
I thought we were doing subdivision, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought we were doing
That's-
subdivisions, all right.
Yeah, no need to apologize. I think for me, it's just a matter of clarity, and it is the, you know, just the committee meeting, so,
Yeah.
you know, it could be a simple motion to talk more about it in the next council. I just want to make sure that whatever motion is on the floor, we're prepared to deal with that at the next council meeting. But it could very well be a motion that we like the thought of this, we're going to have more discussion, let's, you know, either table it and move it on to full council, or we can, you know, or we can table it till the next committee meeting in a month for more research, but just making sure the motion is clear, whatever that number.
Okay. Hey, guys, Bob lost power at home, and he's now on the phone. Would like to speak for just a second.
okay,
Go for it.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Jeff, and to the city council. I think all these questions are very legitimate, but, and I'm not speaking for Dan or Steve or any other contractor or investor here, but, Jeremy, to answer your question, you feel more comfortable with a certain number of homes that were being built. That's all dependent on the property that's available. And I will tell you right now, there is a very small number, less than 5 tracts that are available to build multiple homes on. depends on the type of home, the size of home, the environment that you're trying to create. Is it gonna be what's needed in Harrison, or is it gonna be that second home, or is it gonna be a starter home? And how many can you comfortably put on a tract of land? I don't know if Dan and Steve have progressed to the point that they're ready to commit to the property. I will tell you, having worked this now for about 6 months, there's less than 5 tracts available other than individual lots. So just be sensitive to that. Whether it be 5 homes or 25 homes or 50 homes, any of this will be a major impact for us, all to the good.
Well,
Thank you.
might I ask the chair for,
Mayor, if I can, this is Dan again, if I can make a couple of points just for your consideration, is that, no matter whether it's 20 homes or 100 homes, it's 20 or 100 more homes that are eligible to be built because there are lots that have been developed, as best that I know, for sure in the last 8 years and maybe longer in your community. So to get it triggered is really, really key, just to go ahead and do it, and the risk with a relatively short window of a couple, 3 years is very controllable. The other side that I guess I just want you to be aware of, maybe a little bit to Bob's point, is that although, we wouldn't be here if we weren't planning on executing, okay? Now, have we cut a deal yet? No. Have we looked at several deals? Yes. Have we done the feasibility, the financial forecast and feasibility? Yes. Is there still an unknown about the market penetration? Absolutely. But we wouldn't be here if we didn't think that we were going to do something if at all possible, okay? So with that said, the other side, just a little bit of an alternate consideration is that as opposed to, and we are looking at, at building a sizable, doing something sizable, but I also don't want to, I guess I'm cautioning your committee from making the lot requirement too large that the local people feel like they didn't have a shot. So I don't know whether that's, but I agree at the same time, doing 2 or 3 little lots that are an outlying area, although nice and is meaningful, it doesn't require the financial commitment. Also doing something that required 50 or 100 lots, some of the locals, developers and contractors may feel that it was self-serving. So maybe something more in the 15, 20, 25 lots is meaningful enough, and I can tell you that no matter who does it, that has the ability to do that number, if they're successful, they're going to go and do it again. So, thank you.
Yeah, okay, that's good. I think the one thing we want to make sure of, whatever we offer them, is we offer to the local people, and therefore, when you get into offering benefit by lot, then it's equal to all. I understand what you're saying. You might want to give them more if they're doing a subdivision, but
Give anybody more, not just them.
well, you'd give anybody more, but it really, if we were going to give them what they asked for, the 50% per lot, and on spec homes only, and
Did they ask for that?
yeah, I think that's what Dan asked for. What's that? He wanted as much as he could get, but he did mention the 50%.
Well, another way to.
Uh-huh.
yeah, no, I'm good. Thank you, Wayne.
So, and that's like Grant said, this is something tonight that we can talk about more, but I do know, and he's mentioned so many times about the importance of timing and reacting because interest rates are so low. So we don't want to sit on this too long, but that doesn't mean we have to make a decision. If we can move it on to council tonight and maybe get any more information you need, we'd be glad to do that. And Dan, by moving it on to council, that's what we would have to do anyhow. The soonest we could get you an answer is 2 weeks from now. So if we want a motion just to move it on,
I would think that would be the way to go.
I think Wayne's got a comment.
No, I'm just gonna ask, why would we move something on the council if it's gonna mean we're gonna have to sit the council for 2 hours to discuss it then? We need that discussion before council.
Now's the time
Yeah.
to discuss, I mean, committee meetings are the best time to discuss these things. So unless council feels that in 2 weeks it's going to have an answer to the question, then there's really no reason to move it on to full council, in my opinion.
Because if we don't have the info we need, we don't need to move it to council, we need to move it to the next committee.
You know, because no discussions will happen between now and the next council, which means that unless we're given info between now and 2 weeks from now, then the next discussion that we would all have together would be in 2 weeks.
Yeah, if there's information you don't have tonight that you need,
Right.
we can obtain that in the next 2 weeks. But if you have all the information you need,
But I think one of the main things we need is who it's gonna affect, who gets that benefit when they go down to the office to apply for those permits or go to planning commission. Not so much as our local people gonna get it, but if anybody comes in here and builds a spec home that's 2 houses, do they get the same thing as the subdivision with 20 or more houses?
I would want them to.
And we've not.
Because if we're doing it by house, we're doing it by house, but that's
The
just,
premise behind this is to increase the housing in the Harrison market.
you know,
And whether that be one house on one lot, or 2 houses on a
Right.
couple lots, or a whole estate, that as long as it is a spec house built for the purpose of sale,
Yeah.
then that should apply.
Well, then, why
Exactly.
couldn't we look at maybe a shorter time period instead of 2 to 3 years, maybe a year, and just waive the fees?
well, if they do a development, and that's what they're looking at doing, it's gonna take them 2 to 3 years to build out if everything works perfect.
And
And
if we waive all the fees, just like he said, we're gonna have some revenue that's not gonna be here. I'm gonna go below the fix.
Can I interject again?
Yes,
Okay. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's possible because it's a development that you offer it to any other developer, but maybe it's just a matter of waiving certainty. Since a development is putting in the water and sewer, it's easy to say, hey, we don't have those fees. Maybe it's cutting the building fees so you can still cover your cost of doing inspection. And maybe it's waiving the fees for the lot splits and all that stuff. And maybe it's just cutting some of the other fees and keeping it simple. I don't know that it has to be given as an even break to everybody that, does have a $3,000 bill on the water connection because it didn't spend $3,000 connecting. We're saying we're connecting the water, we're doing everything, including extending the water lead. So there's not really any, there's no loss to the city, whereas on a single individual lot, you would have that loss. So we're asking you to give up fees that really aren't costing you anything, whereas by doing it for everybody, you might actually be costing the city some money.
That's what I was kind of alluding to when I was talking about the flat fees. Those seem like those could be waived, and we could look at some of these others at a percentage. That's just an idea.
okay, you're talking about the $5,000 for the
Yes.
subdivision
The-
fee.
Yes, the $50, all those flat fees that Wade lists.
Okay. Wade,
Yes.
what Jeremy's kind of requesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremy, is possibly for a subdivider guy, a developer, he gets the benefit of the $5,000 for the development. And then we apply a percentage of the other fees to that person for a builder and any other builders. Does that make sense to you?
That would make sense to me. You know, kind of looking at, you know, from a revenue standpoint for the city, you know, cutting the planning fees for a set amount of time is not going to be a huge hit as far as the general fund's concerned. And, you know, giving some concessions on the water and sewer tap fees in a new subdivision, in which, you know, they are placing the infrastructure, placing the meter pits, getting everything ready, and all we're going to be charging them for the tap fee would just be a drop in the meter. So it would be a minimum fee at that point. Would not be a long payback time for us to recover that money. As far as waiving those fees, I think the hardest hit and the one that we have to be most careful about is the building permit fees. You know, because those are, you know, we have, you know, it doesn't matter whether it's a custom built home, a spec built home, or anything like that. The amount of time it takes for, you know, Chief Lowry's building officials to go out and do the inspections, you know, that's real time, real money that we're spending on people. So I think that's one we probably have to be the most careful about right now. And so, you know, I think, you know, if it's acceptable to the mayor and the council, I'd like to work, you know, first part of next week with Chief Lowry and Luke, and actually just come up with a kind of a written plan that the three of us think would you know, work for us from a revenue standpoint, be something that could be sustainable for us economically, but also give some incentive to, you know, a developer that is looking at making a long-term investment. Because, you know, Mr. Ruda said earlier, you know, he made a comment about, you know, in order to do the type of development we do need people that are looking at long-term investments and people that have, you know, the means to be able to look at it from that standpoint, aren't trying to get a quick turnaround on their investment. Because in residential development, it's not a quick turnaround. I've dealt with it in Northwest Arkansas during the housing boom, and I mean, it's just, that's kind of what we need. And I think anything we can incentivize, whether it's somebody local that has the means and the, you know, the knowledge and experience to do it, or if it's somebody from, you know, another state, I don't, you know, it doesn't really matter to me. The investment in our town is the investment in our town. I don't really care where the money comes from. So, you know, if the council and the mayor would like that, you know, I'd volunteer to definitely put that plan together, get input from, you know, the fire department and finance, and get something out to you ahead of the next council meeting, and so we can have it ready to at least maybe discuss briefly, and if it's something that makes sense, go forward with it. Because, you know, the timing is important on this, and development is slow. You know, interest rates are great right now, material costs aren't great. They're starting to stabilize a little bit, but, you know, the more we push this out, the more we're pushing out projects that are going to take 2 to 3 years to get done.
How's that sound to the council?
Sounds good to me.
Wade, can you have all that done and say we call another committee meeting 30 minutes before council meeting to review what Wade puts together?
We can do that.
And then move it from that one into.
We can do that.
That would make me feel more comfortable.
Okay, you mad? You're just the guy with all the answers tonight, Wayne. Thank you. But that is a good idea. Thank you, Jeremy.
I want to see a lot of houses built here, but I want to do it right when we do it.
Yeah, I think that's good. I want to make sure the locals are protected. I just got a message from one, and he was wanting, you know, he was good with what we were talking about. So, all right. Do we need a motion to move it on?
We could withdraw the former motion to move it on, and then.
And just make the motion at that 30 minutes before.
Okay.
You don't have a second, so it doesn't matter.
It's going to drop anyways if you don't have.
No one
No second, so it just dies with the
Okay. So we got a new motion?
No, well, you'll have a motion at the committee meeting before the council.
That's it.
Is where the motion comes.
Let's take it Tuesday.
Well, you can refer it to the committee then, yes.
That's what it was.
So Dan, we'll be back in 2 weeks, but we'll be ready that night, possibly to make a decision. Does that sound good?
Very good.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you all. Steve, Dan, and Mark, Bob Largent, and let's move on. I think that's the longest we've spent on an opening item ever.
He's got Camp Jack.
Joel's got earnest money though, so.
He got earnest money?
He's got earnest money.
Oh, good. Yeah, Camp Jack, and that may be another one that goes on. Do we have Matt Russell on here with us?
Can you hear me okay?
Okay, hi, Matt.
Good evening, all.
Camp Jack, as you know, we put a lease together, and I think that you all received a copy of a lease with a lot of red marks. And the red marks, I think, was Matt Russell's wish list, as I got it this afternoon when I had a discussion with him. But if you would want to go over those red marks, Matt is, he's almost like Dan, but even more so. They want possession of that building, if at all possible, in March 1. And that would require a lease being discussed tonight, agreed upon, and then having it prepared for council. If you guys can do that right now, with discussions with Matt, we can have that for him. If we can't, we're gonna have to move it on.
I will gladly make a motion to do that,
To do what?
to prepare the lease that we want to move on to council and have it ready at council.
Good.
Or act on it.
Well, and before it's seconded, let's see if we can, I agree with that, if we can agree, but a motion to move it on unless we can figure out tonight what's going in the lease, it may not be possible.
Do you have yours with you, Wayne, with the
Yeah,
red
I
marks?
do.
Okay. Would you want to lead the discussion in going through the red marks?
I think he would probably be better at that. 'cause he
Okay.
knows exactly what he
Well, let me
wants.
tell you, I'll take the first one. The address is 411 South Pine. Okay, I took one. Matt Russell?
Hi. Well, first of all, I didn't know that this was gonna be, when I redlined this, I didn't realize it was gonna be shared in this way. This is not demands, it is not negotiating. I think everybody wants this to happen. This was just sort of a wish list or concerns. And I think we can probably move through this pretty quick because, I think we all want the same thing. In item 1, the term, we just like a 30-day, the ability to cancel the lease on a 30-day written notice in case we are unable to continue using the building for some reason. That's not critical, but if nobody has any objection, we could throw that in there.
Okay. Anybody got any comments to that one?
I don't have no problem with that.
We're all okay?
My comment would just be that it would apply the same to the city, so if it was 30 days, either party can cancel with 30 days notice.
Okay.
Well, I would agree that the city could cancel within 30 days, with 30 days notice, providing that we were not providing the services that we're supposed to under the agreement. For example, if we weren't open for 30 consecutive days or we had abandoned the building, certainly the city would have the option to cancel the lease.
Okay, Grant? Okay. Okay, our attorney is good with that. Let's go down to number 2. Option 2.
Number 2 and number 3 are sort of tied in together. There was the issue of below market value and leasing that to us, so we were trying to work on a way to come up with a fair market value, but that rent could be paid in exchange for improvements to the property. I think most of you know that property is not in great shape right now. Most of the systems don't work. It's going to take hundreds of thousands of dollars to make it right, which Camp Jack is willing to go out and come up with those dollars and do that. And we're hoping that that can be applied, against the rent and cover any legal issues. The problem is that at the end of 10 years, if we go out there and put in hundreds of thousands of dollars of improvements and, the city say, we don't like you anymore, get out, then, that wouldn't be very fair. However, having that provision in there is not critical to us to where we get reimbursed for that. It was just a concern that we have, and we're willing to let that pass as long as we can apply what improvements we do make toward a fair market value. Now, what that fair market value is, Right now, you probably couldn't rent it for much of anything because the HV system doesn't work. Every window needs replaced and on. I would say that maybe a $500 a month rate would be something that we could live with, and that would mean that we would, over the term, would have to put in, what, $72,000 worth of improvements. The bid we got on the HVAC system alone is $113,000. So I don't think there's any problem on us covering whatever the fair market value would be.
And Grant, you're good with that?
I think that maybe Mitch had
I would ask the chair and the mayor for the opportunity to speak on this, since I'm not a member of the committee. I'm probably as much for this as anything that will occur down there, even more so than what we're going to speak about later. But I want to make sure, for me, I have the only real problem I have with that is any improvements that they make. Should we end up giving them anything for that? I believe that the city should have the right to authorize any improvements if they're going to one day be held responsible for them.
He had indicated we can cross that.
Right, I understand, but I'm just making the point.
If we did.
As the
Sure.
The committee chair for finance, I'm
Yeah.
not comfortable with sinking the city into saying.
Yeah, good point. We're gonna put in this $1 million bozo clock.
Exactly.
Yeah, I got you.
So I just want to make sure that's not.
And the city can pay us back.
Yeah, the city, in other words, hey, we can do all of this, don't worry, if we ever leave, the city will give us our money back.
So I think that's a real good point, if we were gonna do that, but it looks like we'll scratch that, number 2.
I mean, we can do that. I mean, it can get complicated. It can also be simple. That you know, if we settle, and I'm not even sure 500 is a right or wrong number. I have no idea. But if that's the number we're using, it could get complicated in the future. You know, let's say we authorize X, Y, Z. Then how do we value that? Are we valuing it at present market? Are we valuing it in 10 years? Are we valuing? Is it just costs that are used to expend? So we should be definitely mindful of what we're talking about.
City budgets are based on a yearly cycle. So whatever we do, we should end it at 12/31 and move on to something else. So if that money's not recouped at year end, I don't know how you're going to be able to commit the city to something over 5 years. You know, $113,000 for air conditioner is going to be more than $500 a month. So, again,
I mean,
making those points.
Yeah, if they were to pay for that, that wipes out the whole 10 years.
Yeah.
Sure. So are you good with that?
You can scratch number 2, and I think number 3 we just answered.
Yeah.
As far as, we're happy to have, for it to work that way.
Scratch number 2, and we've answered number 3. Okay, down to number 5.
Number 5, again, this is sort of a moot point in a way. This is demanding that as leasing, we have the duty to maintain all the property at the level outlined in the city's property maintenance ordinance. Day 1, we can't do that because the property is currently not up to that standard. And as long as the council understands that it'll take us a while to get it up to that standard, then we're okay leaving that as it is. But it's just not something that can be done overnight.
Okay, Brent?
Yeah, is that something that Mark wants to speak on? I mean, I don't know if he has enough knowledge.
Yeah, I don't think Mark's here, but Wade could possibly speak on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think at least for
Mark's online.
Yeah, for at least.
Mark is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that Mark Lowry?
He's muted currently, but he's
there.
logged in.
Okay, I see him. Yeah, you are right. Yeah, it would be good to have him on this one. Buzz him up, and we can come back to this, Jeff.
I did walk the building the other day with the chief and some of his men, and they were very encouraging about, you know, what we can do there and those type of things. All I'm just pointing out here is that we want to get it restored to its original glory and make sure it meets all codes and is beautiful, but we just aren't going to be able to do that day one. It may take
Sure.
us 6 months or a year to get it to that level.
Sure.
And as long as the council is aware of that and accepts that, then we're fine with the language as is.
Yeah, if we can go on, and then when we get Mark, we'll come back and address this a little more, Matt.
And number 9, that was just to fill in the blank of the purpose of it. It's a Veterans and Community Support Center.
Okay,
Anybody disagree with that?
that's fine.
The last 2 items, one is utilities. Again, we can't go out and do major fundraising and really get this thing rocking and rolling until such time as we have a lease. And so, right at the first, money might be a little bit tight. We were hoping the city might help us out there a little bit with some utilities. I know that they're planning on having an auction to sell a lot of the equipment stuff out of the building on junior high. We were sort of hoping maybe some of those dollars could go toward utilities. It's not a deal breaker if we don't get the utilities. We can take care of it, but it would just help us out a little bit. The problem is we have no idea what those utilities would be as we start up over the first 12 months. So if you're interested in giving us something with utilities at all, we could put some type of limit on it, like a maximum of $3,000 or something along those lines. Would help us down the road, but if that's not possible, then we can just go ahead and assume responsibility for the utilities from day one.
Looks like the cafeteria had about $3,000 in energy costs last year. That I'm sure minimal because there was nobody in there. But just for reference, that's approximately what it was the $3,000. That's for energy. I don't have it broken down for Black Hills yet, but just for point of reference.
So it would cost the city, if no one was in it, around $3,000?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And potentially more with Black Hills separated out.
I'll remind the council and committee, if you allow me to speak once again, Mr. Chair. The utilities and upkeep had to be kept at a standard where students could use it that day.
You're right.
So there was
a little bit.
There was a little bit.
Yeah, good
And
point.
What air conditioning was in there working was being used, because they had to be able to put students in it at any time.
Yeah.
So,
So what would you want to do on that? Wayne?
I'm not sure I'm for the way it's worded here in the letter.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel that the DAB and VFW and all them, I think they can afford the utility, or should be able to afford the utilities down there. I would love it being one of them, that if we didn't have to pay it, but I think we should be obligated to pay what we use down there.
Okay. Does that make sense, Grant, or you, no?
I mean, I understand what he's saying, I think, but I just need, Wayne, are you saying they should pay them or we should pay them?
They should, I think, if there's any way that we can give leniency on any of it for these service organizations, that the city should do it if possible, but I don't think the city should be obligated for everything up front, not knowing what that amount's gonna be.
Okay. So something more general that states those utilities would be factored into an overall rental market value that they're receiving based on that, something like that?
Right, something like that.
Okay.
And one other thing I'll point out is it sort of takes us to our next item, the storage shed item, is that warehouse is metered with the rest of the building and will be used primarily by the Parks Department for storage and some equipment, and that does require having HVAC in there, to keep pipes from freezing and those type things. So, there might be some offset on the, utility costs or some reimbursement on, that area, as it applies to the overall utility bill.
And I think that's feasible. If we're Parks is using it, then I think we should share it.
But that is something I'm comfortable we can work out down the line. I mean, I don't know that that has to be, nailed down right now. I think, we come up with a fair number down the line, whatever the usage might be. And, so, I'm willing to go ahead and accept responsibility for utilities from day one, but I would ask the city council if there are funds available from the sale of the equipment or furniture or those type things that they could donate to Camp Check. That would sound a little bit, we'd appreciate it.
We do have to have an agreement when we do the lease, as far as what the lease is gonna say, we have to have that worded in.
That's the kind of the point, I think, because if we don't have something solid down, we'll be coming back at every other meeting.
Amending it.
Which is fine, we can amend it, but it's I think a misuse of council time for, every few months to come in and try to make an amendment to it. And we can certainly do it.
Okay?
Well, can we just look at putting a period of time or a dollar amount, whichever comes first, that we're comfortable with, kind of like you're saying, that it was gonna cost us some money anyway, if it just sits there vacant? And that's a possibility where we wouldn't have to be addressing it constantly.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, we probably should settle on what is the fair market rental value. I mean, that's the reason why we're doing all this, I think, in the first place, is to try to make sure and get to a point where we know what it would, the city would have to gain if we rented it on the open market. If the number's 500, that's fairly simple, because we can work from that number and apply credits where necessary to get to that number. I mean, the lease could be as simple, if we said it's 500, what is that, 6,000 a year? So we could simply say that they need to invest 6,000 a year in stuff, and then the rest is on us. And that's one simple thing. We may not want to do that. We may say that doesn't actually compensate. That may not be the right way of looking at it, but it could be simple. But I think we have to settle on, especially what the fair market rental is.
Could you factor in the utilities for that?
Right. I mean, that would have to be. You would have to factor in what it would cost the city to leave it vacant versus what it will cost. I mean, if the city is going to actually go into more expense because it's open, then you're going to have to justify that in some way with a public good, to say that the public is getting some use out of it. If we can just close the doors and it's cost us $3,000 a year, you'll have to look at other factors that may not be monetary, but those need to be considered, I think.
Okay?
Do we know how many square feet, floor space that, they're gonna be using?
Matt, do you know? Matt might?
The total building's about 16,000 square feet. The portion that's not the warehouse is about 13,500 square feet. However, you can't really put an actual rental number on that, like $1 a foot or anything like that, because again, even though the school district did their best to maintain the systems, they just don't work right now. And for example, several of the doors we cannot open because the concrete's broken and sticking up, and you can't even go out those doors to exit the building. Most all the electrical work's going to require a replacement. Most all the plumbing work's going to require a replacement. We have to install new bathrooms because it doesn't meet code for the amount of bathrooms that are required. We're talking about the possibility, although we may not have to, have to sprinkler the entire building. So when you're looking at fair market value, this isn't like a brand new building that's ready to move into. it's gonna take an awful lot of work and an awful lot of time and money, and there's certainly a major discount involved with that.
I mean, fair market value could be $1.
Pardon?
I mean, fair market value is just a number. I mean, it could be $1 based on what you're talking
Right.
about. I mean, it's worth.
Well,
it's worth
I think that,
something.
whether it's $500 or $1,000 a month, we're gonna far exceed that with our improvements. So to us, it doesn't make a lot of difference one way or another. I think 500 is probably a very fair number for a condition of.
Matt, what if we split the difference there and went at $750 a month market value? Would that be acceptable?
That's fine with me.
Okay. What do you guys think? You okay with that?
The issue just becomes, again, and you may have already addressed it with utilities, you know, if you add in the utilities, if we paid for the utilities and added that into their lease versus them paying for utilities and paying $750 a month. So you can make it $750 a month and they pay for utilities, or you can make it $1,050 a month, we pay for utilities, and then that $1,050 goes towards whatever fair market value at the end.
And those are two of the factors. There's also the other huge factor of improvements. And
Right.
I mean, those are only two. I mean, you also look at improvements. I mean, if they're adding, you know, an HVAC system on their own accord, then that's worth something to us. So that's, I mean, improvements are, you know, are definitely factors in too. It gets complicated. It's not all that simple. I mean,
Okay.
So the reality is that 10 years from now, if we're highly successful there, which I certainly hope we will be, is that a new city council and a new mayor at that point is gonna have a hard time kicking us out. So I'm not so worried about renewing it down the line or us getting our money's worth of the dollars that we'll be investing. I think that'll all work itself out, you know, down the line. I think it's gonna become such a critical part of the community, and that there's no way that we're gonna get kicked out of there unless we aren't doing a good job.
Okay.
So I'm fine, you know, if you guys wanna go 750 or 1,050, including utilities, either way, we're fine with that. You know, and we can work and adjust it down the line, but we're just, I think, you know, covered about all the issues. The only one that was left was the warehouse usage, and this is something that we've been discussing all along, is that there's an existing little room in there that they use as an art shop. It's about 650 square feet. We're gonna need a repair shop for wheelchairs, hospital beds, those type of things. I think there's plenty of room to store all the city's Christmas lights, plus the Parks Department equipment in there, and still allow us to use that 650 feet. So that's the last issue we had with the lease.
Okay, I think we're good with number 12. Back to number 11. Joe, make a decision on that. Yeah, go ahead.
Lowry's on the line if you.
Okay, Chief, would you want to, you don't have this in front of you, I'm sure, the lease that we've been talking about with Matt Russell? One of Matt's concerns is an inspection to the property over there. They're going to get in there and start work on things, but it's going to take them a while to bring things. I don't know if they're not up to code now, but it's going to take them some time. Do you know the condition of that facility, Mark?
Yeah, we met over the other day, Mr. Russell, and we kind of went through that building, and it, as far as the building as it sits, I mean, it's usable for what they're wanting to use for right now.
Okay.
There's gonna be some fire extinguisher, minor things that's gonna have to be brought up, but nothing.
Okay.
Really seen it.
Good.
It's
So
too bad it did.
you wouldn't shut him down for any reason at this point. Okay. Does that clarify that, Matt?
Yes. that's
Okay,
fine.
okay. So we're back to number 11, folks. Thank you, Mark. Do you want to go with 750?
Let's stay at 500 until we see.
I'm sorry?
500.
Okay,
until
we
see
you
where
want
it goes.
make that a motion?
Well, we
Yeah,
got,
once we finish.
that'd be a.
Oh, that's right, sure, that's down there. That's down with Grant. So you're good with that? You got it, Grant?
I got that.
All right, well, okay, guys, I think that takes care of that. Is that good, Joel?
You've got to vote to do
Yeah,
those.
the motion should be in the form of to incorporate all of the discussion we've had here tonight and to authorize me to begin making changes and amending the current contract to present at council in 2 weeks.
So moved.
Second.
In a second.
Okay, we have a motion by Wayne and a second by Jeremy. Okay, all in favor? You go? You're good?
All in favor?
Okay. All right, Joel, thank you for all that, and we're going to carry on, and we'll,
Thank you all for your help, I appreciate it.
yeah, you're welcome, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Let's see. Okay, now we're down to financials. Mitch,
Yes.
time for Mitch.
Okay, this will be a fairly short report to the committee. These are very preliminary numbers. I don't know how much you were able to look over it. And my discussions, even with Luke this week, have been fairly short. We came out a little bit, the general fund have a budget deficit at the end of the year, $41,000. I was kind of hoping that we'd beat it even before we got to this point, based on what was going on in the year. There's a few reasons why that is. We'll get a few things back later as they come in, like the franchise fees and a few other things, but we'll have continued expenses as well. The hope would be that as a budget chair that we get to even. I don't know if we're going to get there or not. I'll let Luke speak to some of that in a few minutes. As I go through the financials, the one that, again, the largest budget deficit is in the city water. It's 469, I think.
That's
As I went through it, it's the only one that's in a budget in comparison. It's the only one that we're going to end up in a deficit besides general fund. I will also remind committee and council that sales tax revenues for December, which we would normally expect to be up, we will get those numbers for a few days, and that will not apply to the previous year. So that will be, we will actually receive that funding in 2021. Luke, you want to speak to that, the possibility of franchise fees or any change in that deficit number?
Yeah, so the preliminary number actually had a couple things missing from it. One of them being franchise fees that he alluded to. As you recall, we set up the franchise fee fund, and we will get that funding back, but we will have to record that as a receivable, and we'll have it in cash on hand at this time. So that's about the 41,000. It ended up being just a little under 50 that we would get back. So that would have actually put us in a positive. However, we just did get a bill for part of the construction of the public safety building. That being said, there's about $40,000 there, and that's going to go into 2020 that we didn't have anticipated in there. It's just for that building cost. That's really the whole reason why we would be negative, is because we started on that project. And so anytime you have that much of an expense, you're going to have a net deficit. Typically, that will actually go into our capital improvements fund, but that will be done after the fact. So it will look like we're $40,000 down, but really, when you take out the building, we're about $40,000 to the good. So.
Okay, great.
So we're just trading from one pocket to the other, in that case, taking it from our wallet and putting it in our front pocket. So the net effect's going to be zero, essentially. It won't be much more than that. Again, expenses will continue on through February until they hit the final cutoff.
Yeah, zero is good, because we were projecting,
Yeah.
what? 200?
191.
191. We were
just under 200,000,
Yeah.
197 or what, but yeah, 191. So again, for the year, we're much better off.
right.
I was kind of hoping that we would get to even, so we could say, hey, not only are we going to have to do it really well next year, we're looking at a surplus, a slight surplus. I was hoping that we'd be close to that this year, even if it's just $7,000, $8,000. But
We're glad to be even,
Yeah,
especially during COVID.
right, and it's,
Why?
and to be honest,
Yeah,
in this size of a budget, $40,000 is nominal. I mean, you know, one year, I think we were 7,000 deficit.
yeah,
But there
that's
was one
like
time we
zero.
were at 700. I mean, yeah,
700?
it's very rare that you get to that minimal of a difference between your budget and your actual.
So,
Yeah.
again, I don't know if council and committee have any questions, but other than that, there's nothing to vote on, so.
No, I think that's great news,
yeah.
Mitch. Thank you.
Like I say, it's all positive. I will extend again the concerns with the water. We're still ahead of where we thought we were gonna be, but still a concern, and we made that adjustment in rates, so.
Good, thank you.
You bet, that's all
And
I ask.
Mary Jean is not with us tonight, and she's not on, so I hope she's feeling okay. I believe she is, but she's not with it. We'll go down to, where are we here? Larry? No, wait a minute, where am I? Mary Jean. Mary Jean. So Chris is going to take that. Chris Grady. That's right. He said he would be with us. There he is.
All right. Am I loud?
Yes, sir.
All right, I don't look like a cat or anything, do I? All right, guys, what I want to talk to y'all about what I want to talk to y'all about tonight is about retirement of Jerry.
Thank you.
And you got your hopes up. I'm not talking about the mayor. I'm talking about our canines. So, Jerry has worked 6 years, and a normal canine will work 5 to 9 or 5 to 7 years. And it's just time that we retire him. And I need y'all's approval to give him or donate him to his handler, John Morgan. Because at this point, he becomes a pet. He's not a working dog anymore. He's not useful to us anymore. He served his time. We have an officer already going to another canine school in March. So we are replacing the canine immediately with another canine. It's time that we retire Jerry, and we need to move. I would like to ask that y'all move this to the city council. It just requires basically an approval of the city council to retire him and donate him to his handler, John Morgan.
I make a motion that we send this on to council to do what's been asked here.
Second?
Okay.
Great.
Yes, sir.
I think we would be remiss if, when we act on this in 2 weeks, that we do not, honor Jerry, his handler, for the work that he has done for the city of Harrison.
Oh, I agree.
And I would say get with the mayor, but he needs to be treated like any other retired officer, in regards to awards, whatever the case may be. I don't know, but I think that would be appropriate to do at this time, because we all know that how hard a dog works, keeps that officer safe and also keeps our people safe, so.
I agree, and it's where we can meet in person and bring him there. I would gladly do that. I'm not for sure when this meeting ban is lifted. I don't know if it'll be lifted by then or not.
March 1 is,
And even if, I mean, I'd be willing to leave the meeting and take Daisy out so Jerry can be properly honored.
Okay, well, we would love to do that, so we'll see if I can get with the mayor and see if we can make that work.
Mr. Mayor, with the chair being absent, can I speak?
yes, sir.
I remember the days when I was on council that they brought the dog in. And not only were we impressed, I don't think even the general public realizes how much value there is in those animals that we have. And we definitely need to honor, I concur with Mr. Boswell, need to honor their service the dog does need to become a pet, because I guarantee you that Officer Morgan is as attached to that animal as any person that's worked with an animal like that. And the last thing is we need to continue it, because that money is incredibly well spent by the city for the citizens. And for those of you that don't know, last week at different schools in the community where that dog was there, I've seen them at some of the, around town. I've seen them on traffic stops. Again, it's a fantastic program, and it's well worth every penny that the city puts into it.
Thank you.
Yeah, Bill, thank you for that advice. Absolutely. So, where are we?
I think you need a vote. I think I interrupted during discussion.
That's right. Do we have a motion? Do we have a motion? All in favor? Okay, anyone opposed? Good. All right, Bill, Bill Boswell, do you have anything tonight?
No, nothing. I would like, and Mr. Mayor, I apologize. I've had massive internet/Wi-Fi problems from here at my home to stay connected. But I would like Wade, if he's still online, to kind of bring us up to date as to what the city has done and where we are in regards to street and road work that the folks have been doing since, gosh, Sunday, I guess would be.
Yeah.
I think they've done a yeoman's job, and they continue to do a yeoman's job. I've even seen them reacting to individual need salt on specific streets off Facebook. So Wade, if you would, kind of give us an update as to where we are.
Yeah, we've been, I guess, running quite a bit since a little bit before the Super Bowl started on Sunday evening.
You didn't have to bring that up.
Yeah. I do apologize to the Chiefs fans. Bring that back up, that stuff. Just as of midday today, just kind of give you an update on how much material we've put out. We're a little bit over 75 tons of salt that have been put out since Sunday evening, and we did about a 50-50 mix of salt and gravel, so another 75 tons of gravel chips have been put out on the city streets from Sunday evening until midday today. They were still running into the evening. They'll probably break, and we'll see how things hold up. And see if we have to call people in overnight. We're hoping not. We're hoping we've got enough salt and everything down to keep it from freezing over too bad. Just to kind of give you an idea of the cost of those materials that we put down, we're looking at right about $9,600 of salt and gravel that's been put down since Sunday evening. One other issue that we kind of dealt with a little bit. Today we had 2 of the trucks in the shop. That's one of our main problems when we're fighting ice and snow is we did have old equipment. So, we're probably going to start looking over the next few years at trying to roll in some new spreaders and plow trucks into the fleet. Maybe try to do one next year, one the following year, just to get a couple more updated ones and get rid of a few of the old ones that are starting to become more and more of a problem. Hasn't been a big problem the last few years because we haven't had to do a whole lot of this, but we started getting winters like what we've been used to in the past. We're going to have to start thinking about upgrading some of that equipment and try to phase it in slowly so we're not spending a whole lot at one time. You have to answer any questions, so if anybody has any other concerns or information they need to share.
Yeah, Wade and Bill, I forgot to pass this on to you, Wade. I received a call at 9:30 last night from a person wanting to compliment the street crew. So we're getting a lot of compliments right now the last few days. Actually, I don't know of any complaints. So good job, you and the people. Wade and Bill, I've got another question for you. We have a person on the line, and we have to do our best to at least address these questions. They are asking who is going to pay for the roof at the Armory. And I know we haven't decided that yet, but would you care to address that, Wade? Maybe an update on where you are?
Well, Harness Roofing is, they've gone out to do some moisture testing, on the roof so that we can actually get a real estimate. When we talked in the previous council meeting, you know, we were going off of estimates of immediate repairs that need to be done to stop active immediate leaks, and then kind of a worst case scenario if we did go ahead and decide to replace the roof. So, you know, I don't have, you know, somewhere between, I think it was $9,000 for the repairs to the worst case if we decide to go ahead and replace the entire roof. You know, they were looking at $80,000. Hoping it's not going to be that, but they've not completed everything and they've not gotten to the point they can give me, you know, final estimates so that we can have real discussions on what we want to do now and how we want to do it.
Okay. Would either of you want to comment on who we believe is paying for that or where that's going to go? Okay.
I think that's going to have to be something that's discussed at the finance committee when we know the real numbers.
Okay.
Well, I think that's gonna have to be a finance question. We're not at that point as to,
Okay.
How we're going to pay for it, let alone have even discussed if we're going to pay for it. Because of what's being discussed in the lease, you know, if Camp Jack could have taken over, I have some concerns about giving them a facility that is in need of so much. However, I'm not on the committee, and that's fine. But, you know, as far as who's going to pay for that, I don't think we're there yet.
Okay.
That question hasn't been answered. But
All right.
it'll have to definitely come out of finance.
Okay. I think you addressed that.
Well, and given that statement, I think that what we need to do is make sure first that it's safe. And that if there is some sort of major repair, that the city would take the appropriate action after they find out. I never want to make a comment about what we will commit to before I know the numbers.
Sure.
For the committee or council, as any statement. And I will also point out, one of the benefits with Camp Jack, and I don't know their tax status, they will receive a lot of donations, and I'm not saying that any of that would pay for a roof or an HVAC.
Right.
But as they have fundraisers, I mean, I'm looking forward to the first chili supper or whatever they have down there, going down there and seeing what they've done to it. It would be great to have a grand opening down there at some point.
Right.
Invite the public in and say, look what we've done.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you. We can move on. Is that all, Bill?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's go to Wayne.
We got several things we're going to discuss here, and I guess first one I'm going to take care of is the resolution for the lease at 710 North Robertson.
I'd make a motion that we send this on to council.
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made to send this on to council. All in favor, well, discussion first.
I don't see anything wrong with the lease we've done on it a couple of times. I don't know if Grant would have any comment on it.
I think the only comment was, there was some question about the property insurance, and I think there was a little bit, it seems that independent living was paying for, not just personal property insurance, but for the building itself. I also, I'm sure it's under the city umbrella already, so we would just want to make sure, and I'm still seeking clarification, I can probably get with Luke or Tash or someone in the city that knows if we're actually providing insurance, but it seems my communications with independent living, they believe it's under their policy, the building too, so there would just be that clarification, but.
Once it's stipulated, I would assume that any business owner is required to, I mean, I assume that we're required by city municipal league to carry insurance on that property.
Well, there does have to be some insurance on it, from my understanding. Now, I don't know that it stipulates city versus them, whoever is probably occupying it at the time.
We do cover the insurance on the properties that are similar to that being leased out. And they carry contents and liability, and we carry coverage on the facility.
Are you saying that there's a stipulation that insurance is simply covered on it, or the city has to verify that?
To my knowledge, I just know that it has to have coverage. I don't know that we're required to verify, but I can ask municipal league on that unless Grant knows that right off.
I don't know, I just want to make sure that, I mean, there's no reason for both parties to be
Right.
protect insurance on it.
Yeah.
If that's what's been happening over the last 10 years.
We're at least covered once and maybe twice.
Yeah, there's no reason for double coverage, so if the council says we'll provide it, if it's not being provided, then I can put that in the lease. The council finds that, independent living is covering that insurance, and they would just like to let them continue to cover, I don't mind either way. It's just, that's the only area of the contract that isn't exactly clear.
I'd like to compliment Luke. About a month ago, we went over all of our properties, and we were overly insured on so many things. And we were insuring things that we didn't need to insure. So we were able to definitely save some money there. I don't have how much we saved. It had to be
The
worthwhile.
last one I remember is we saved about $2,000 in parks.
$2,000 in parks alone. Okay, good, yeah, that's right.
Any further discussion? All in favor of moving this, resolution on, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
Okay.
All right, next, and, on that one, Grant, you're gonna get all that ready for the mayor's sign, right?
Yeah, I mean, I will. The only thing I think we're lacking is simply the insurance issue, and that may be something that we're going to need to talk about. I mean, it's great we're moving on it, I think it's such a small issue, we can definitely settle that in 2 weeks. But I think the council, just to give food for thought, council should be thinking in the next couple of weeks of what it wants to do depending on what answer comes back. I mean, if the answer comes back that independent living hasn't been covering the insurance and the city has, you would need an answer to know if we're fine continuing that. On the other hand, you need to know too, or have in your minds, if independent living has been covering it, if you feel that it's fine for us to, within legal limits, of course, reduce or remove insurance coverage that we have. So those are just things to be thinking about until we have an answer to that question.
All right, next thing, I guess is gonna be probably one of the more talked about things tonight also, is I've got ordinances here in front of me, and I've gone through them, read them, and I've got one question on a couple of them that I'll ask you a little bit. But I'm gonna turn this over, who do you want it turned over to?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take it for a minute, and then we've got actually 3 people that want to address you. Simply because I believe this is without a doubt the most important thing that we will probably address between now and the end of my term. We've been working on this. You all read the letter I sent out, and it shows that we've been working on this for about 1 year and 4 months. We did not give up. We listened to the people, and we learned, and we think that we did everything the people required of us in our new plan. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and start with Chuck. Chuck wants to talk to you first about the facilities. You do have, the site plan there in front of you, and he'll go ahead and cover some of that right now.
Thank you, Mayor. And like he said, we've been working hard on this new proposal, and as that first slide you're looking at, we make our community stronger. I feel like the proposal we're going to present to you tonight is going to do just that and kind of sell you on that idea. The next slide, we have a quote, "Change is inevitable, progress is optional." When I read that quote, it kind of sends me back to my coaching days when I had my mentor, Coach Tice, tell us coaches and all our players that you don't stay the same. You get better or you get worse. So that kind of reminds me of that. And, we know things are going to change, but progress is a choice. And with this proposal, I hope that we're going to look to progress in our city And, last proposal, we had over 1,000 people in the community vote for progress. So I think we have something that a lot of the community people and citizens and families want. Going back to the survey, which is on the next slide, it wasn't, okay, I'll wait on that, but talking about the survey, activities for youth and families was number 1. Community center was number 2. A trail system was number 3. Downtown beautification was number 4, and job creation was number 5. And then our new proposal, we touch on every one of those, and these are the needs. We asked what they felt like the city needed, and this was the top answers. We had a lot of that in the last proposal, but we also listened, like he said. I feel like it's my job as the Parks Director in the city of Harrison to speak for those citizens that I hear daily on what we want to see with parks. So there was what happened with the survey. So that kind of led us into our proposal going forward. So the first thing I'd like to talk about, like the mayor said, on the facilities part, which I think goes hand in hand for activities for youth and families, is the Creekside Community Center we're proposing. You have the map there in front of you. We're looking at adding 2 new courts, multi-purpose courts for volleyball, basketball, pickleball, and refurbishing the old junior high gym, which used to be the high school gym here for Harrison, which we really want to leave that gym because we know there's a lot of memories, and that's a really special place for a lot of people in this community. So we're wanting to leave as much of that as we can for the community. Well, that right there, those 3 courts, we'll be able to have events up to 2,000 people. Adding those 3 or adding 2 courts and refurbishing the one with what we have now at the youth center with our 2 courts there, that would give us the capability to host 50-team basketball tournaments, which that would just be on parks facilities where we've been having to partner with the school, and that's about what we've been doing in our basketball the last couple of years. We did the ROI on that with Matt a couple of years ago, and just with the basketball tournament, because we had lost a few, that would probably be about $800,000 coming into the community for a 50-team basketball tournament if it was a 2-day tournament, which we would have the capability. The reason we lost some of these tournaments was because we didn't have AC in those gyms that we were using, so we lost some of those tournaments to some other towns. We're in a very big competition for tourism in these communities where we live, and that would be a big asset for us. Behind the gyms in the hallway. Actually, I want to stop because another big thing we're going to add is a walking track. That is one of the most things I'm requested every time I have somebody come get a new membership at the youth center. When are we going to get a big walking track we can use when it's cold outside or early in the morning? So we're adding a walking track around those courts. So we'll actually have an indoor, bigger walking track that the community can use. But going behind the gym, we're talking about remodeling some of the old junior high, which is the computer labs that were down on the far end behind the gyms. We're going to make that one of those computer labs an e-sports lab where there's e-gaming. And now, I don't know if you've heard, but they're offering college scholarships for those kind of games, which is Xbox, PlayStation, and computer games. They're actually giving out college scholarships for that, and we have a lot of kids, and we were able to host a few tournaments before COVID hit, and we had a good turnout. I think the first tournament we had 55 participants, and that was amazing. We were thinking 20 or 30. We had over like 50 people come play in these tournaments. So we're hoping to be able to host those and use those labs for the kids that don't just do the original sports, but we're evolving and trying to let those kids have a place to go and come there as well. The other side of the old computer lab will be what we call a learning lounge. Cox has donated a lot of Chromebooks at the youth center right now that we would love to set up in that other section and leave out for kids to use for homework after school or anything like that. Get on the internet and use that lab. if you go on down the hallway when you first walk in the entrance, where there used to be 2 big science labs and classrooms on each side of the hallway, one of those we'd like to make into a meeting room so people could use for big meetings that they're having in town or birthday parties. We have people rent our facilities all the time for birthdays. That would be a great space for that to happen, and they'll have that availability to do that. On the other side, we would like to make the other one a game room of like a pool table, ping pong, a hoop shoot, darts maybe, things like that, where kids don't have some of that at home that we can give them at our facilities. That's what we're looking at that. And, speaking of kids, our kids programs, we want to expand them. We want to grow those numbers and give the kids a place to go where their families and their parents feel like it's a safe, happy place for them. And having these gyms and these classrooms and these labs, I mean, we could expand our program so much more, and with the access still to the youth center. So that'd be huge at the Creekside Community Center. So that's kind of my proposal on that part of it. And then I'm going to talk about the other part, which is the natatorium or indoor aquatics. There'll be 3 sections to that. There'll be a 8-lane competition pool, which we have never had the capability of hosting a real big swim meet. This will give us that availability, and that will bring in tourism. It will also have a diving well. And I think we were talking the other day, if we have our diving well, we might be one of the only ones around that have a diving well with that competition pool. The other section will be a therapy pool, and that will give citizens in the community that have been in physical therapy or their doctor prescribes therapy, that they could come into our pool and use this. That would be a big asset for those people. And the children's pool, we're going to put what we call a kiddie pool with some play features in there, and that'll be using this time of year, and that would also be for birthday parties and things like that. So that's the part of the natatorium that we'll be adding. The next one is upgrades to the sports complex. Now, these would just be upgrades of what we're doing. We're really not building anything new on the fields. We're just going to be adding 4 turf infields. Now, let me tell you about the turf, because, we're in the tourism business, but the baseball, softball tourism here is our biggest draw right now. And we're competing with Northwest Arkansas, even Branson now, about these tournaments. And the turf will give us the capability of not losing tournaments on the weekends because of rain. We lost a big one last year, even after COVID, that we were able to have, and we ended up losing it about halfway through it because it rained 3 inches in like 2 hours. That doesn't happen here. So also, 2 of those fields will be the home field for the Harrison Goblins baseball and softball team. I go out to the complex all the time. Half the time this time of year, our baseball team's practicing in the parking lot because our fields are frozen and wet, and it's unsafe for them to practice on. This will give them the ability to practice on their field, at least on the infield part. So that to me it would be a huge asset. And it'll cut down maintenance costs as well with that turf and labor from our maintenance guys, which we just took on another asset with the junior high, would give them more time to work on that. So, and then the most important thing I think too that we're going to be adding in this proposal to the complex is covered bleachers, which is a huge safety issue. We don't have that right now. Covered bleachers would give us more shade for our spectators and keep them from getting hit with foul balls, which could be dangerous. So that would be a huge asset that we're trying to add to our complex existing right now. That's my part. I'm going to talk about the facilities on that, and I'm going to turn it over to Wade now to talk about the trail system. So I'm going to let him get in and talk about what we're going to try to add with the trails. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. We are still looking at ways to get our trail system expanded throughout town. And so what we're talking about on this project is adding approximately 2.5 miles that would run from Dry Jordan, the end of the small trail that we built previously. It would continue on to the north and to the west to Goblin Drive. There'd be a 10-foot wide lighted paved trail. And, going with the 10-foot width, it would be a multi-use trail, so it can be used for walking, running, biking. It's a multi-purpose trail that could be used by families and people wanting to get out and jog, ride their do some cycling. And the reason we're running this to Goblin Drive is because as part of the Goblin Drive project that we're moving forward with, we are putting a 10-foot multi-use trail on the east side of Goblin Drive from Industrial Park Road down to Caps. So that will basically connect our high school, middle school, as well as Baker Prairie by trail to the downtown parks, and really give us a good start at building out an actual trail system and a loop that can eventually make its way all the way through town, from the Crooked Tree down to parks, back around at several schools, and then you could actually make your way back down to the parks. So fairly simple concept on what we're trying to do with the trail, and it really is part of a much larger and longer range plan to build out our trail system to where we have something that we can use throughout the entire city. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Luke, and he's going to cover some more finer details of the finance.
All right, so they took all the fun stuff, and now I get to tell you how we're going to pay for it. So we are proposing 2 1/4 of 1 cent sales taxes. One would be an actual temporary sales tax that would sunset once we actually paid off a $20 million facilities. And this is a $20 million. We feel we can get all of these items that we proposed to you so far for that amount. Obviously, those renovations do take time to pay off. We have gotten a quote or an interest rate that shows that it would be paying off in about 18 to 20 years. It's a little under 2% is what we got quoted. As and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Ruda, is that correct? As he alluded to before, we're at historic lows when it comes to interest rates. Now is the time. The second 1/4 cent that we are proposing would be a permanent tax. It's to go to help with the operations and maintenance of these facilities that have been proposed. It would also go to help any kind of future parks improvements, a la a capital improvements fund for parks. Something that's never had here in the city. And also, we're going to propose that we put some economic development funding in there for job growth and job creation. I think that's something that we heard from the last time that the citizens wanted. Every time we mentioned something, they said we need jobs. So we're going to set aside some of that funding to help with economic development and job growth throughout the community. One thing I do want to note real quick, with that half cent, if that 1/4 and 1/4, that does equal the half cent. If we do have that passed, we would be at 9.5%. That still keeps us in the bottom quarter of towns our size in sales tax. It would tie us for the third lowest with towns our size, and I did this last time, range 9,500 population to 20,000. We're kind of in the middle there, but we would actually be tied for the third lowest. And if our neighbor there to the east passes theirs in a few weeks, we would actually be tied for the second lowest. So we are trying to keep this as reasonable as possible. And that kind of leads me into the next part of it, is affordability. Sorry, I switched ahead there. We want to make this as affordable as possible for everybody in our community. Now, I can't sit here today and tell you what the cost would be for someone to come in there, because that's probably irresponsible of me in today's society, or in today's political climate that we're in, because we don't know what's going to happen 2 years down the road. I know there's been some ideas floated around about a $15 minimum wage. That could change things drastically whenever we're looking at rates. But we are committed to keeping it low. That's something that Jerry, I know, is very passionate about. Keep finding a way to make the underprivileged have access and make this available to people. And we'll try to defray the cost with, scholarships, facility rentals, and also some sponsorships. Obviously we'll look at that throughout these buildings as well. Why now? We get that question a lot. Well, obviously we mentioned interest rates. That's a big factor. We don't know what will happen a year down the road. Those could jump. I know we said that last time, and we never thought COVID would hit, but here we are, and they're actually even at more historic lows. We also feel that the pandemic is starting to slowly but surely go away. We feel like in the fall, or maybe even in the winter time, this time, it's going to be gone, or we're going to have the vaccinations that will help offset that. So this building wouldn't actually be built for probably a couple years. 1.5 to 2 years is when we estimate that timeline. And by that time, the pandemic should be over. As I mentioned earlier, the capital improvement fund, we've never had that for parks. We've never had a maintenance fund specifically for parks. Yes, the city gives an allocation, but there's never anything that's actually been dedicated to parks. And so we feel like that is something, if we're going to grow our park system, if we're going to try to step out and make a quality of life decision for our community, that needs to be something that's taken into consideration. I know I'm going to get this question too. We're going to ask for 3 readings, and we're going to ask for it in 2 weeks. And some people I know will say, well, why do you need all 3 readings at one time? Well, I talked to our bond attorney. He said that 99% of all of the cities that have done this do it all in 3 readings. We can still get that information out there over the next 2 months about what's in this proposal. And we also want to let our citizens decide. Let them come up with that decision of whether they support that or not. So we are going to ask you to put that on the ballot. I believe that the date is May 11th is when we're going to ask you to put that on the ballot. We're going to ask you to do 3 readings in a couple weeks at council meeting. But we also just want to ask you to help support and make our community stronger. With a stronger sense of pride, our stronger citizens by having that exercise capabilities, and we believe this will also strengthen our economy. 3 different things there where we think we can make our community stronger. So with that, I'll ask any questions that you may have of Chuck, Wade, myself. What are your questions that you may have? We may have some from the audience out on Facebook or Zoom. But we would like to ask for your support on this, to at least take it to council and to put it on 3 readings and to actually have it put on the ballot on May 11th.
And Wayne, that's your committee.
Yep, it sure is.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions for the committee?
I'd like to make a statement, and I don't want to go on a long journey here, but I'd like to make a few statements in regard to it, if I could. I sat on the Parks and Rec Commission for 17 years. I was the basketball commissioner for Consolidated Youth for 19 years. I was the overall baseball commissioner for 7 years. I can remember going to the youth center and we'd have 200 to 400 people every hour come in for basketball games. And I think Mr. Boswell was a commissioner when we'd have many more than that go to the complex. To see our community be able to use something it's heartwarming to see our families and all get together and come to these events, these facilities. I won't go to the past other than to say, maybe the individuals that started the old campaign went too far, asked for too much. I still wish something like that would have passed out there because I think it needs to happen in our community. That being said, when I see Chuck's comments about basketball tournaments, to turn them down, and I can't remember exactly the year that it happened. It would have been around 2007 or somewhere in there. Judy McCutcheon, who's the manager at the airport, and I were involved in youth basketball. And we had over 2 successive weekends. Each weekend, I believe it was 81 teams in town. And that's during the winter. And that had a huge impact. And we had not just gymnasiums in Harrison, but in Bergman, and Valley Springs, and Berryville, the Ridgeway Gymnasium up there, the old facility up there. We used everything that we could, but the town was full of people. you know, as I look at this, even my children, all three of them work in the Parks Department, working either at the complex or at the youth center. So they're jobs for teenagers. I see Camp Jack being across the street from the natatorium, where a veteran can walk across the street and go to the pool. Literally walk across College Avenue, things like that. And I go back to the discussions that we had during the time of the, I said it was one more penny when you, instead of $1.10 for a Coke, it was $1.11. Well, now it's $1.10.50, essentially, on this.
Yeah.
The amount of money spent on this from a tax basis is minimal in comparison to the benefit to our community. From a recruiting standpoint, I've taken two people that were going to move into this community, one a physician and another individual coming to become one of our largest employers as an employee. And they said, the very first thing, we want to see your school. So I drove them to the school. Got the keys, went in, showed them everything. We want to see your hospital. We went to the hospital and a group medicine, we went through it. The third thing they said, where's your parks? I took them to the youth center and the complex at the time, that's all we had. Sheridan Garrison, the biggest benefactor financially as an individual for this community, wanted to put Goblin Stadium down on the creek. And he wasn't able to do that, but he saw the value and the beauty of that coming through town. Regardless of whether or not we change the creek back to its old form or keep it as Lake Harrison, there's going to be changes down there. This is the perfect place to put this. It's going to fall into all of that. So I would commend the individuals that are planning it for at least looking at this in the framework of how you've done it. Again, I'm not telling people to vote for it or against it at this point. I simply know this is well designed, well thought out, and it will benefit our community at a minimal cost.
Can I add to that a little bit too? And I know Chuck alluded to it a lot earlier, but you mentioned the old facility that had been proposed, and we really did want to listen to people and listen to their thoughts and what they thought we could do different. And we tried to check off as many boxes of those that they said, and we feel like we've done a really good job. I know the mayor came to us, and he's wanted something like this down on the park or down on the creek forever. I mean, he wanted it the last place. We had too much stuff to make that happen with the last proposal. But we did. We listened to our constituents, they said, we don't want 40 million. We want less than that. Okay. We did that. They said, we don't want it out there. We want it downtown. We listened to that. And there was, I believe, 10 things that we tried to cross off the list that people said, we don't want this, we want this. And we tried to incorporate that into this proposal. And we really feel like we've come up with something that the community can get behind and, again, make our community stronger.
Well, and let me piggyback one other thing that I thought of, and I apologize. Like I said, I don't want to go too long with this discussion.
You go ahead and talk all night.
Mary Jean, if she was, she'll probably log in just so she can say we need to go home. But, the school district, the original hope was that they would get $400,000 for just what is the current gymnasium and that structure. It just wasn't going to happen. When they told us that the value of that was $1.2 million for just that section, I said, well, we'll just sell it tonight for that price. We knew we weren't going to get that, wasn't reasonable. But, the city bought this at a nominal fee from the school. And the school could have said, okay, we'll remove all of the issues that you have, whether it be a roof or whatever, but we have to charge you $400,000. Well, they didn't do that. They basically netted the transaction. The state of Arkansas said, we have a preference for this school to be turned into some sort of public property. So not only did the school district feel that this would be a good use for it, the state of Arkansas said it needs to be turned into public property and used. Now, again, I don't know, there's all these tournaments that my grandchildren go to, Branson and Hollister and Mountain Home or wherever. They went to one this weekend. We try not to attend them because we're trying to stay socially distanced and all of that. Harrison should have that opportunity to hold those, and people should be able to do it in their own community. There's never a 100% positive, but if you just don't like it because it's anti-tax, I can't do anything about that. I'm anti-tax. But if I can, it goes back to all the information we have in regard to economic development with the chamber. If I can give them $40,000 or $100,000 and it generates $500,000 in economic development, that you're stupid not to do it. Well, if we put a quarter cent into this and we get more back from it, which I would assume we will, other people from other communities coming here or outside the Harrison area in the county, it will generate that back. So now I am going to shut up.
All right, Wayne.
Look, Chuck,
Yes, sir.
you're looking at 20 million. Who come up and how did we come up with a figure like that? That's a question I've been asked.
Yeah, we relied on our architects that we've worked with for the last couple of years to come up with an amount. And you know, we were tasked with saying 20 million, that is it. This is what you get. And so we kind of went to them and said, what could we get for 20 million? Tell us what, we know we have to renovate some stuff. We know we'd like to add some stuff. What is it that we could get for 20 million? And this is kind of what they've drawn out. They actually came back with about 21, 22, and we said, no, 20 million, that's it. So we cut back a couple other things that we would have liked to have in there, but we also, again, want to listen to our constituents. This is what we think they're gonna approve.
Okay, do you have in this process basically an itemized listing of what this would cost, what this would cost, what the park would cost, that if somebody walked in and said, tell me what it is, can you do that?
They have an amount that's allocated to each one. I caution you to just put it out there that this, and this, because then you're promising something. Let's say the baseball fields may cost $500,000 additionally, but we can cut that $500,000 somewhere else. You understand what I'm saying?
But you got a basic idea of what
We do.
you're looking at.
Yes.
Now, when you ask for 20 million, you got a basic idea of what it's gonna cost to do this.
Yes.
Yes.
And actually, when you add it all together, it's not 20 million because you have to take into consideration architect fees plus bond fees and everything else to get to that 20 million.
But you have that available.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he could probably tell you right off the top of his head, he could break that down into about 8 categories. We went over that information just the other day and broke it down. We got what the architect said was going to be 9 to 10 million on the natatorium. We're now at 6.5. And then you move over into the other areas, and we've got it broken down into how much it's going to cost per foot to remodel the old and how much it'll cost for the new. So to answer your question, Wayne, yes, we have broken it down to small categories, and we understand the importance of that. We've learned so much.
But I want to be, and I want these two and you to be able to answer somebody that question.
We can do it.
When they come to us and ask. I agree with what Mitch said. Another thing, we got 2 ordinances here, 25. Okay, what's gonna happen if on the ballot, the one passes, the other one doesn't? That happens quite often. Maybe you talk about that.
I can tell you if the building passes but the operations and maintenance does not,
Right.
the council would have the ability to say no thanks on the building. Now, if we could also, I guess, do the same thing with the operation and maintenance. However, I think we could also still put that to good use, even if we didn't have the building. I would hope that people would see the value in both, but I understand your question.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying something someone said.
Understand.
And I noticed in reading these, as you all know, I'll read these things.
Yes, sir.
And the one ordinance says that it will also support the other ordinance. The 25% that is going to be for operations, How much of that are you looking at using for the bond, the one that's got the bond issues in it?
Well, I think that's going to be a floating number depending on the council. We've been told if we say a specific percentage, then we're tied to it. And so that's why we kept it kind of floating, if you would say. We just know that we want to use that for operations and maintenance of the park's facilities, plus any kind of capital improvements, plus economic development and job growth money for the future.
Well, and I understand that, but I want that answer to go.
Understood.
Where people can understand.
Yeah.
Who's going to explain the three ordinances?
I can explain some of it tonight. I will probably rely on our bond attorney until a couple of weeks to explain it a little better.
I'm talking about, did you write these ordinances?
No, I've reviewed them, but the bond attorney wrote them.
Okay.
It's a pretty specialized.
We got 2 weeks to do the 3 readings of this. And I'm not sure that the date on here is correct, that we could hold this election either, from what I found today. Because if we've got to do this 3 times, 2 weeks from now, to get this through to where we can have a 60-day period to get the election done. And the state requires a special tax election to be held on a certain day.
Second Tuesday.
We've got to make sure we get this done in time.
Yes, sir.
And I'm not sure it's second Tuesday, because I read today in Mountain Homes, it has to be done on first Tuesday.
Okay, well, we were told the second Tuesday. I will double check that.
Yeah, Mountain Homes, I went in and read all their stuff too.
And they vote next,
The 20th, they vote on the 20th to do theirs.
I feel pretty certain, Wayne, it's the second Tuesday. We had lengthy discussions.
Well, I've seen a difference between what they're
Yeah.
writing.
Theirs would, and ours would be the same.
Yeah.
And I feel certain it's the second Tuesday. Chris Grady's wife confirmed that, and we really went over the
But
calendar.
we've got 8 people here that
Understand.
needs to understand these before we vote on them 2 weeks from now.
yes, sir.
And as far as being against them, I'm just like Mitch. I think this is a super ideal and super thing to do, but we've got to convince the people to do it. What are we, 3-4 months past the last failure? And I don't want a lot of that to come back and haunt us now. Because one of the things we were told is people didn't know what's going on the other, a lot of it.
But we will try our best to get as much information out there as possible. And I'm sure people thought that they didn't have enough information. We tried, but if there's another avenue that people would like for us to get that information, we'd absolutely love
And I
to.
understand that.
Wayne, I'd like to address that because I had it down at the end, and it's very important. We have a citizen volunteer group that have been working for probably at least the last 30 days on putting together information, and they are going to go live with a Facebook page tonight. After we move this on, they'll go live with one, and it'll be called Make Our Community Stronger. And that's where all the questions are going to be sent to, and they're going to get all the answers. They've got most of them right now. It's just a terrific group of people that are going to be handling this, and it's going to stay out of government. That's another good thing. And I think you'll be really pleased. I know I am so far with everything I've seen.
I'm okay with that, but we got 8 people that's around this table that's gonna be voting. I wanna make sure the other 7 are up on what we're doing too.
Sure.
And same with the ordinances.
Absolutely.
According to the, according to the Arkansas Election Commission, it is second Tuesday of May the 11th.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay?
Yeah. So Mountain Home, we'll see how that, if they go on the first.
What I read was
I
a
know.
paper article there, and it may be one of those paper, but.
You know those-
Actually.
I know.
Well, we really feel like, we all 8 of you hope that we've done our due diligence on this, and what we've presented is factual, easy to read and study. So we hope that goes over well.
Well, and I do
But
too.
we're here for questions too. I mean,
We got 60 days to
Yeah,
do that.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we're excited about going out and getting the information out, I promise.
Okay. Anybody else got anything? Anybody on the screen? Bill?
I'll say one thing,
Okay.
Wayne. Just kind of piggyback on what Mitch said earlier. Now, this is anecdotal evidence, but I spent about 5 or 6, let me take a step back. I have a 4th grader, plays basketball on a 4th grade basketball team. I spent about 5 or 6 straight Friday nights in Stratford, Missouri. I'd never been to Stratford, Missouri until this basketball league. And we go up there on Friday nights to play in a league because they have a 4-court facility. And there was one time I made a mental note of this where I think we had 2 Harrison teams playing on 2 of those courts with a 3rd team waiting to play, which was our team. So you had, in Stratford, Missouri, an hour and a half away, full of Harrison people. That's, you know.
What he didn't tell you is at 9:30 and 10:30 at night to play those games on Sunday.
That's a terrible drive.
Yeah, nothing fun about the drive, but it's taking our people out of Harrison going to Stratford. That's just personal experience. Secondly, I'll just add too is, you know, I work with grants a lot during my day job, and funding agencies want to see local investment in yourselves. And so when you're going for funds helping on park projects like Wonderwilla or others, you know, a big selling point in that is, what are you doing in your community to help? You're asking for us to help. What are you putting on the line? So I'll just say they would play a big role. Now I'll hush.
Okay, I think I heard Bill cut in there. Bill, do you have something to say?
Well, it's no secret that the first item that I'm not comfortable with, and my opinion will not be changed, is the fact that reading all 3 in one night. I'm sorry, that's not the way the law was set, nor was it meant to be. I got the cat, by the way, in case nobody cares. But that, you know, that's the first thing that I'm very uncomfortable with that. And I'll just state that publicly at this time. As far as asking for a tax increase, I'm not comfortable with it yet either. As I told the mayor, we're not out of COVID yet. And for those that are comfortable with saying we're going to be out of COVID this summer or this fall, I'm not one of those. I mean, it sounds like I'm a negative Nancy, and I'm not, because much like Mr. Magnus, Jeremy, I was one of those parents also that traveled all over Arkansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma taking kids to basketball games and basketball tournaments and baseball games and baseball tournaments and volleyball, which is a huge item now. And I understand that. Guys, I'm just not in favor of a tax increase. I'm being honest. And I just want to put my 2 cents in worth. But the biggest part that I'm not in favor of is we have to read it all 3 times in one night. That's not the way the law was meant to be. That's not the way the law was interpreted to be. It makes me sound like, you know, I ought to be in Congress right now arguing a trial case, but that's the way I feel. That's what I'm going to say about it.
Let me share, Bill. There is another option that might satisfy you. We're trying to hit that May 11th date, and if you back that up, we have the ability to read it 3 separate times, each time a week apart. You know, we could read it a week from now, and then at our meeting, and then a week following would still give us ample time to do the vote. So either way would be fine with us, but we'd really like to hit that May 11th. So maybe that would help, Bill. Okay.
All right, on the ordinances, what's the committee's wishes? Jeremy, Mitch, Bill, and Robert, you led.
As far as, what do you mean, what are our wishes? Do you mean as far as moving the home to full council? Well, I will make a motion to move them on to full council, and I'll just make that motion first.
I'll second that motion.
Yeah, I have a motion and a second to move these ordinances on to full council. Are there any further discussion?
I prefer to wait.
Is this based on 3 individual reads, or is this based on all 3 reads in one night?
That will be decided council.
I start to say, I think council will decide that tonight if somebody makes a motion in that regard.
If that's the case, and you do decide that night you want 3 separate readings, next week would be passed.
Right.
So we would have to do it 3 different times, maybe a
Right.
few days
But I mean,
apart.
again, that's for council.
Yeah, that's for
That night. I mean, if I can make a motion,
Okay.
and then it has to either go through a second in the process.
Okay.
And I prefer not to debate it here. I think it's something that needs to be debated in open council. So anybody that wants to contact us and have that discussion and have their input, we can get it there. So I'm not even going to debate it other than that.
Okay.
Any other? All in favor of moving these on to council, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. These will be moved forward to council 2 weeks from tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks guys, appreciate y'all a lot.
Okay.
I believe that's all I've got, Terry.
Okay, good, thank you. I'm going to make mine short. I have got 3 commissioners that we want to actually reappoint. These 3 have been on there. A couple of them have been on there a long time. And Joel, I think you represent the council on that. And on the Planning Commission, I'd like to get a motion. Well, no, we don't need a motion. We just want to pass this along to council. Let's just pass the 3 of them along to council.
Agreed.
Okay? All right, all in favor of that?
Aye.
Good. Anyone opposed?
You don't need to vote on that.
You win. You win, Joel. Well, thank you. Thank you, Wayne. We've got through the Creekside thing. I want to talk to you just for a second about COVID. You know, you always hate to put out good news because, you know, you're just crossing your fingers. It keeps coming. But we have had a really good 2 weeks in regards to COVID. We have dropped from a high of 285 active down to 168. And I think the great thing is we are experiencing a death, probably 1 a week now. And I know those are tragic, but it used to be 3 or 4 a week. So things all over the country, I think, are getting better. In Arkansas, they're definitely getting better. And in Harrison, they're getting better. The vaccines are being given. I think our community, I don't have the information, but I just have that feeling that we are doing a terrific job at giving vaccines. I think we've given, in according to population, probably more than most counties. And I think the method, the process has been flawless. You know, the hospital, the college, and the 3 pharmacies, I think have done a remarkable job. So I hope you all agree with that. And if we keep that up for another couple months, we'll be on top of this, baby. What do you think, Grant? Hey, and I looked over and he smiled. So, Mary Jean?
Just a minute, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Since we've got people on Facebook, I don't know how many we got watching, but
No, okay.
the follow-up shots, the second shots was scheduled at the college tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
Due to weather, they have been postponed until next Friday, and maybe not everybody got the notice. I got mine early today.
Okay.
It's just something we need to get out there so we don't have a lot of people showing up to college on that.
Yeah, Christine or Wade, could you put that out there, please?
Hey, Jerry, one thing, and I don't know if Jerry's been looking on it, we didn't really have questions for the audience since we were not.
We haven't adjourned yet. Thank you. Hey, Jeff, do we have any questions for the audience, from the audience?
No.
Okay. Anything else, folks? I think you all did a great job. Thank you all. I know we've worked a year and a half on this baby, so hopefully.
In Mary Jean's area, so he.
Hey, give it to me. Come on.
Let me slide over a little bit.
Bring it.
Let's go home.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mitch. All righty, guys, thank you a lot. Thank you, Joel.
I appreciate that.
Last week,
We've had questions in this all day and